The Marti Cifuentes era has kicked off in steady fashion. 11 points from the possible 18 sees the Foxes in 4th place, the highest by far of the recently relegated clubs. Now, although there's reason for optimism, there's still uncertainty across the board, the squad, point deductions, the way Leicester are playing, many areas we'll be discussing today and what Leicester need to do to improve. Now, Marti Cifuentes arrived at Leicester City at quite an inconvenient time point, mid-July, midway through pre-season, whilst taking a long process of actually getting through the club. But so far, the Spanish journeyman of a manager has been super convincing in his demeanour, his adaptable identity that seemingly embraces the club, the culture itself, whilst utilising the youth talent at his disposal, creating what can be considered a good relationship with the supporters. Now, Cifuentes has coached different styles of football across his career, but quite commonly he quite likes to implement short, intricate passing play with mixed, direct, lofted balls forward. All of that whilst maintaining solidity off the ball in a 4-4-2 shape. So far at Leicester City has implemented that, with a hint of inconsistency in performances. Marty's flirted between different setups so far, trying to find what works best for his LCFC team, really trying to maximise the most out of certain individuals without leaving his team vulnerable on the break. Against Sheffield Wednesday, we saw a 2-3-5 shape with his fullbacks in a cautious but narrow role in possession, whilst Oliver Skipp dipped in and out of the pivot with Boubakary Soumaré. After suffering a goal down at the break, Cifuentes tweaked his setup, instead having Luke Thomas tuck into the back line whilst James Justin moved into that right half space, with Winks and Soumaré making the 2 in the 3-2-5. After suffering the key loss of Bilal El Khanous on loan, Marty went for something more cautious a couple games later against Birmingham in a tightly matched contest that achieved a clean sheet and 2 goals. We saw a fairly basic 4-2-4 shape. However, most recently, we saw Leicester's most exciting performance yet, with Ricardo Pereira starting at right back and inverting from right back to join that forward line, after 2 well-taken goals in previous games, occupying in those spaces. Now, this is all good, he's adaptable, he's flexible, but Leicester City haven't been all that good so far in the Championship. Leicester City faced 14 shots, 2.48 XG and 4 big chances versus Preston North End. Against newly promoted Charlton Athletic, it was a similar story, as the Foxes faced 20 shots, 1.62 XG, 2 big chances, whilst hardly creating whatsoever, saved by individual quality. When we take a delve into the numbers, then it doesn't paint Leicester in a very pretty picture. As we can learn, Leicester are expected to have more of the ball, of course, but creatively have really struggled to stamp some authority. The Foxes averaged 12.83 shots per 90, which is decent, but the average shooting distance from the goal is amongst the highest in the league. Why is that? Well, Leicester are spending lots of time in the ball in the final third, with the most progressive carries and 906 touches there, but hardly generating any XG, which measures the actual quality of chances they are getting. Leicester also rank 14th for big chances created, suggesting that the Foxes are a little bit reliant on individual quality and are struggling to create. And then, despite being so defensively solid, there are still some weak spots to punch out. Let's analyse why and where. Now, we have Leicester City in this low build-up shape, and I think that's when we run into one of our issues that we're going to talk about. Now, Marti Cifuentes is still within the early doors of his management at Leicester City. He strives for balance, but he's also striving to find his best system, the best selection of players that wins Leicester City the most games, with slight limitations as well. Although he's got a lot of materials, he hasn't exactly got a number 10, barring Aaron Ramsey and Jordan James as of right now. But when we have a look at this, we're not looking at Birmingham in specific too much. Teams like to push fairly high against Leicester City. There's a sort of a quiet and a quite exhilarating confidence when teams do play against Leicester. You saw that with Charlton, you saw that with Oxford, you saw that with Preston. Teams really don't know what to expect from Leicester City this season, and when teams push high against Leicester, the Leicester of Enzo Maresca would have loved that. They would have thrived on that. They would have looked for that, and it's a difference because everybody sits back. So the ball is playing out from the back into a Coley, into that right centre back, and there is no passing patterns and there is no ball retention. There's not enough counter movements within the forward line. When Ayew drops in as a number 9, he's not really an out and out number 9, he's going to drop inside. You need counter movement from Mavididi, you need counter movement from the number 10, you need counter movement from Abdul Fatawi, and unfortunately I don't think there's enough of that. So I think you need to utilise this because you bring in the 2 centre backs and you create space for somebody running into those spaces. But unfortunately, playing a long ball to Jordan Ayew every time isn't very consistent because you expect Ayew to hold up the ball and to retain the ball, but he doesn't do it well enough. Page as well. He's 16 years of age. He isn't the best at retaining the ball when it gets punted into him like this. It's going to take a heavy touch. You look at the midfield core. Soumaré is very inconsistent at keeping the ball. Although he's strong, although he's a good forward passer, he doesn't keep it well enough. He loses it within this phase. He's not careful enough. Skip isn't the most technical, so he's going to lose it. So it just gets forced long every single time. And particularly in this game, Birmingham had so much more of the ball. Not because Leicester wanted them to have so much of the ball, simply because Leicester couldn't keep the ball. And it was within this highlighted phase where Leicester was really struggling to keep the ball. It was a hard watch, there was a lack of rehearsed passing patterns, and overall Leicester didn't have very much success on the ball. Of course, off the ball is a different story, and it was nice to see, but there just wasn't enough going on here. It was played out to a Coley every single time, and there's far too much reliance on punting it down for Tawu's flank for him to run onto it, to create a bit of chaos. There's a clear lack of ideas within this phase, but there's also a clear lack of personnel. I mean, the fullback options aren't the most exciting. Ricardo was coming back from injury at this point, but Hamza Chowdhury is a midfielder, and he's not the most technically astute fullback that bombs up the pitch. He's a midfielder. He's just a secure possession outlet, and that's the exact same with Luke Thomas. Luke Thomas is just a secure possession outlet. Again, he doesn't offer anything in terms of bombing up the line. He's just not that type of player. He's not the most enthusiastic player of all time, to be honest with you. But I think what Leicester City need to do is rehearse and embrace passing patterns and short passing. Now, a lot of people are going to say, no, we want direct balls, we want this, we want that. But that's not to say you can't still play direct balls. You just need to choose the moments, and you can't become reliant on them to progress up the pitch. But Leicester City want this, and with the more technical players such as Ricardo Pereira, Jordan James, Harry Winks, Aaron Ramsey as well, I think Leicester need to embrace this, play through teams, and you'll see so much more success again, because ultimately it's what the squad is best at. It suits Vestergaard, it suits Faz, it suits Soumaré, Winks, Pereira, and it unleashes the likes of Mavididi, Abdul Fatawi, Jordan James, Jordan Ayew, so much more. Now, if we have a look at Leicester City within the next phase, particularly when they have a look to attack, we're not so much looking at the opposition. I've just put Oxford in for reference, but we're looking at the different shapes that Marti Cifuentes has used so far. And this was the 2-3-5. You have players within their natural positions, maybe not so much skip, but as you can see, fairly basic shape. And the reason as to why this didn't work so much is quite a few. For one, there is nothing going on within the half spaces. Any sort of ball progression there is incredibly limited because there's too many players going on here. Oliver Skip within the right half space just doesn't work. He stands out like a sore thumb, and it's a very tough watch. We have a look at this 2-3-5. Anytime Leicester try and punch the ball into these areas, they lose it, and that becomes really easy for the opposition to expose in transition, because ultimately the players are going to come forward here. Thomas is going to look to win the ball, Chowdhury is going to look to win the ball. It's very easy to attack the flanks and be exposed in transition. I don't think Leicester, with the personnel they have of Vestergaard, of Coley, of Faz, can do this very well, because the two of them chasing back exposed. You saw it against Preston. It doesn't quite work, and it doesn't leave a very pretty viewing. It's a very easy counter attack every single time, and there's no ball retention within these. Although Marty likes to have very fluid rotational play, it doesn't really work with these type of players within these areas. Oliver Skipp just isn't the most fluid. He's not going to get the ball and turn here and look for goal. He's simply just going to recycle it backwards or out wide. There's an over-reliance on Fatawu again. And then if we want to have a look at this 4-2-4, then again it's far too cautious, and then it leaves the wingers incredibly isolated. You recycle the ball out to Abdul Fatawu. He's 1v1, but that becomes a 2v1. So he's within these areas, he's forcing it back every single time. The distance between Abdul Fatawu and absolutely anybody is huge, because Ayu looks towards the back post. Page isn't really looking towards getting in the box so much, because he's not that type of player, that much, to be honest with you. He's not a box crusher, he's fairly small. So Fatawu is looking to cross an incredible distance every single time, and Fatawu works best with underlapping players here. But why is Marty so reluctant to push these fullbacks forward? A lot of teams do it, plenty of teams get success from it, but with Leicester City's personnel and athleticism, it just doesn't work. If you push these fullbacks so far forwards, push Skipp forward, it's very easy to attack. Leicester look the most vulnerable and weak when they do this sort of thing, and they get caught out of possession. This was particularly on show against Oxford and even Sheffield Wednesday to an extent. It's very easy to counter attack, so Marty looks to be cautious with these fullbacks instead, because none of them can bomb up the line. None of them are overlapping fullbacks, so this just doesn't quite work. The team doesn't have the athleticism and the personnel to do this. And with Marty's mix between short intricate play and direct football, that is also very risky in its own mean, because you play a direct ball here, it doesn't work, you get attacked straight away. And Vestergaard, Caleb Okoli, Harry Winks, Luke Thomas chasing back, it's very easy to see where that goes wrong. And then Leicester City out of possession in their 4-4-2 shape worked very well against Birmingham City. Overall, it's very tricky, it's very compact, it's difficult to beat, but I think sometimes there's small little gaps. If you look at Kumas within this game, there were small little gaps between him, Samare, Oliver Skipp, where they could knock the ball through, where they could play the ball through and just find that pocket of space. It wasn't proactive enough, and I think these two here, with Samare, with Skipp, simply need to be better to that. They need to be more proactive, more alert, and not let that ball through. Any pass inside, realistically, needs to be intercepted, needs to be out. Another weakness which was highlighted in the Oxford game, when a team plays a direct ball and it is so that's not the right play. When a team plays a direct ball and it's headed out by Vestergaard, by Coley, there's then a bit of a gap if the opposition overload these areas. The distance from the defence to the midfield is slightly off. This was seen in Oxford's first goal. You can see Caleb Okoli heads it there, and Oliver Skipp and Boubacar Samare are nowhere to be seen. They're not proactive enough, they're not alert enough, and this creates a little bit of separation where teams can find that little bit of space. If you overload these positions, you pin back the centre backs, then it's pretty easy where you can find the space versus Leicester City, because the midfield is a little bit weak. But overall, 4-4-2, it's not too bad. It's pretty good. Now let's have a look at how Leicester solve their problems and what they need to do. Now it's no surprise that Leicester City's problems get solved with added personnel. You have Harry Winks, Ricardo Pereira, Jordan James, Wout Faes as well. It's quite easy to see where Leicester need a little bit more reinforcements. Although Ricardo Pereira inverting from right back into this right half space can pose a risk in transition, you have Wout Faes and Fatawu and even Harry Winks to some extent to cover within these areas. But this gets the box shape. This gets the 3-2-5 shape that Leicester are so familiar with. It gets the best out of Vestergaard. Faes in the championship, at championship level, is brilliant carrying the ball into these very natural spaces to access the likes of Fatawu and Ricardo within these areas. We've seen so far Ricardo be so effective in these spaces with the 2 goals he scored so far this season. But this isolates the wingers 1v1 with their fullback whilst giving Fatawu that underlapping run to Ricardo Pereira. Steffi Mavididi, despite the fact he's lacking confidence, it gives him the option as well. And the best thing about all of this, it's fluid, it's rotational. The players don't stay where they are, the players can very easily rotate. We could even see Ricardo here as Winks moves into a more attack right half space position. It's all very fluid, it can all interchange, and each and every player with their technical qualities can drop into different spaces, making it difficult for the opponents to pick up. But this 3-2-5 shape offers more balance. It offers the correct balance should Leicester be exposed in transition. You have Samara, you have Winks, you have Ricardo chasing back, Ricardo having a little bit more urgency chasing back as well. So I think there is a lot to work with here, and I think this is the formula to go forward. You have problem solvers within these areas. Vestergaard with his forward passing, Faz with his forward carrying, Fatawu and his 1v1 excellence with Ricardo in the underlapping spaces. Ricardo box crashing as he's done so well, particularly this season, but also in the past few years when I'm seeing him here. He scored a similar goal against West Ham. You have Winks in his forward passing, Samara in his forward passing, Jordan James and his ability to break down these little bit of blocks and punch the ball into these areas just here. And whilst also looking at all of this, you have reinforcements off the bench. You have Aaron Ramsey who could potentially play here as well. And what comes with Aaron Ramsey as well, you can drop out Samara, you can play that pivot again from right back, the famous pivot of Winks and Pereira that worked so well in the Championship, and have Ramsey and Jordan James moving into these areas, which is a whole lot more natural than Ricardo Pereira to some extent. So this is the formula, this is what works. I just think that Marti Cifuentes and Leicester City need to rehearse these passing patterns. Embrace the short build-up play, because ultimately that's what the side is very used to. It's nice to see that Cifuentes and Leicester are good off the ball, because if they get promoted, they're going to need that next season. But this is the formula, this is what works. I think this is how Leicester City win games. There's better ball retention, there's more movement, there's more technical qualities, there's more of everything. All of that with Monga coming on here. Kalanza, which is a different profile. You've got so many different options, and as I said, this is what Leicester City need to go for. This is how Cifuentes gets Leicester City promoted. Thank you for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, feel free to smash a like and subscribe to the channel. What do you think of Leicester City at the moment? Where are they going to finish? Is Cifuentes any good? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.